The basement was cold again. I wrapped my thin blanket tighter around my shoulders, listening to the muffled laughter drifting down from above. My family was celebrating Isabella's promotion, the one I was never invited to be a part of. Above me, the sounds of crystal glasses clinking, designer shoes clicking against the polished hardwood floors. It was as if they were all living in a world I wasn't a part of. At 25, I was still in my parents' basement, not by choice, but because they made it clear I had no place elsewhere. Madison doesn't need a real room. They'd decided years ago. She's going nowhere. Isabella got the master suite, complete with a walk-in closet and ensuite bathroom. Oliver, with his perfect grades and perfect smile, got the room with the balcony. And me? I got the basement, unfinished, with exposed pipes and cold concrete floors, a camping cot that squeaked with every movement. That was my domain. The only person who ever made me feel seen was Grandma Rose. While my parents poured all their energy into Isabella and Oliver's futures, Grandma would sneak down with cookies and quiet smiles. "They don't see you, sweet girl," she would murmur, brushing my hair back. "But I do." Now, Grandma was gone. She'd passed in her sleep last week. The funeral had been yesterday. It was everything my family wanted it to be, a grand ceremony, a polished display of their success. Isabella, the corporate lawyer, had given a speech that made everyone tear up. Oliver, the brilliant surgeon, had shared stories that proved how important he was. And me? I was an invisible figure in the back, wearing the only black dress I owned, bought from a thrift store. "Madison," my mother's voice echoed down the stairs, cutting through the silence. "Come up here, your sister's making an announcement." Reluctantly, I climbed the stairs and entered the kitchen. The warmth hit me, but it wasn't comforting. This was the place where I was allowed to prepare basic meals and little else. The family was gathered around Isabella, their faces practically glowing with pride. As I was saying, Isabella continued, barely sparing me a glance, "The firm has made me junior partner, the youngest in history." More clinking glasses, more praises thrown in the air. My father, beaming, grinned at her. "That's my girl, always knew you'd make us proud." Oliver stood near the coffee maker, the expensive one I was never allowed to use, and nodded. With my new position as head of neurosurgery and Isabella's promotion, the family name is truly on the rise. My mother smiled thinly, then shot a look at me, one of those looks that spoke volumes. If only all our children had such drive. I bit my tongue. They didn't know about the things I'd done in secret, the business degree I earned online while they thought I was wasting time, the small investments I'd made using the money Grandma had secretly given me, the patents I had registered under a false name. But it didn't matter to them. To them, I was the family failure, the example they used to keep Isabella and Oliver on track. "Work hard," they'd say, "or you'll end up like Madison. Don't forget about tomorrow," my mother said, her voice cutting through my thoughts. "The will reading is at 10 a.m. Everyone needs to be presentable." She glanced at me, her face pinched with disapproval. "Madison, wear something appropriate. Maybe Isabella can lend you something." Isabella smirked, her voice dripping with disdain. I doubt anything of mine would fit her. I retreated back to my basement, their laughter echoing down the stairs. What they didn't know was that 3 months ago, Grandma Rose had visited me, her eyes twinkling with mischief as she pressed a small, brass key into my hand. "Everything's in place," she'd whispered. "You'll understand soon enough. Just remember this, sometimes, it's the ones they underestimate who end up surprising them the most." At the time, I didn't understand. But tomorrow, at the will reading, everything was about to change. The next morning, I stood outside Mr. Patterson's law office, dressed in my thrift store black dress, while my family, in their designer morning clothes, gave me nothing but cold stares as they gathered in the waiting room. "Now that everyone is here," Mr. Patterson said, adjusting his glasses, "we can begin the reading of Rose Eleanor Montgomery's last will and testament." The first few items were predictable: heirlooms to distant cousins, small gifts to staff, donations to charity. My siblings fidgeted in their seats, eager for the big revelations to begin. "To my grandchildren," Mr. Patterson's voice rang out, making everyone sit a little straighter. "To Isabella Montgomery, I leave my collection of legal books and journals." Isabella's confident smile faltered, her eyes narrowing. "Books? Just books?" "To Oliver Montgomery, I leave my medical research papers and my father's old stethoscope." Oliver's expression darkened. "A stethoscope? Where's the money?" The silence in the room deepened as Mr. Patterson continued. his voice unhurried. And to Madison Montgomery. The moment my name was mentioned, my family's attention drifted. Why would they care what Grandma left me? To them, I was the disappointment. I leave to Madison Montgomery the entirety of Montgomery Enterprises, including all subsidiaries, properties, and holdings, currently valued at approximately $400 million. The room froze. A heavy, stunned silence enveloped us. Mr. Patterson's voice blurred into the background as I watched my family's faces go from shock to disbelief. My mother's face drained of color, my father's hands trembled, and Isabella stood frozen, her mouth agape in shock. That's impossible. Isabella's voice broke the silence, her tone thick with denial. Oliver was the first to find his voice. Grandma didn't have that kind of money. She lived in that little cottage. Actually, Mr. Patterson interrupted, with a knowing smile. Mrs. Montgomery was one of the most successful silent investors in the country. The cottage was just a front. She held significant stakes in multiple Fortune 500 companies, numerous tech startups, and real estate holdings across the globe, assets now legally transferred to Madison. I thought back to all those late nights when Grandma Rose would sit with me in the basement, teaching me everything she knew about business and stocks. While my family thought she was telling me stories, she had been preparing me for something far greater. There must be some mistake, my mother insisted, her voice sharp with panic. Madison doesn't know anything about running a business. She's not qualified. Actually, Mr. Patterson cut in again. Madison has been secretly managing Montgomery Enterprises for the last 2 years, under Mrs. Montgomery's mentorship. During that time, the company's value has doubled. For the first time, my family turned to look at me, truly seeing me, the failure, the girl who lived in the basement, the one they had underestimated. Now, I was the secret businesswoman who had been running an empire worth hundreds of millions. But this was only the beginning. What they didn't know was that Grandma's empire was far bigger than even Mr. Patterson realized. The key she had given me wasn't just a symbol of wealth, it would unlock a legacy that would change everything. After the initial shock in the office, my family's reactions were predictable. Isabella immediately started reciting inheritance laws, trying to find a loophole. Oliver called his friend, a lawyer who specialized in contesting wills. My parents were caught between begging me to reconsider and threatening to take action. Madison, darling, my mother's voice suddenly took on an unnerving sweetness. We should discuss this. You're not ready to handle this kind of responsibility. I stood, smoothing the fabric of my thrift store dress. Actually, I have a meeting to attend. Mr. Patterson, shall we? I asked. He nodded, gathering his briefcase. Yes, the board is waiting. Board? Isabella's voice cracked in disbelief. What board? Montgomery Enterprises Board of Directors, I said, my voice calm. They're expecting their new CEO. My father's face turned purple with rage. You can't be serious. I interrupted him. I've been acting as CEO for the past year. Grandma just made it official. With that, I walked out of the office, leaving them sputtering behind me. But I wasn't done, not by a long shot. Grandma's key was burning a hole in my pocket, and I knew exactly where it would lead. The cottage where Grandma had lived still looked as quaint and humble as ever. On the surface, it seemed like an ordinary home, but I knew better. I went straight to her study, to the old painting of roses that had always intrigued me as a child. I pulled the painting aside, revealing the hidden safe behind it. The key slipped into the lock with ease. Inside wasn't what I expected. There were no piles of money or gleaming jewels. Instead, I found hundreds of documents, property deeds, stock certificates, corporate ownership papers, and a letter written in Grandma's elegant hand. Asterisk, my dearest Madison, by now, they know about Montgomery Enterprises, but that's just the beginning. While they were underestimating you, we were building something much larger. The documents in this safe represent my true legacy, holdings in over 200 companies, properties across 6 continents, and controlling stakes in some of the world's most successful corporations. The total value? Approximately $2.8 billion. More importantly, these papers contain evidence of your family's financial misconduct, your father's embezzlement, Isabella's insider trading, and Oliver's involvement in medical insurance fraud. I kept this information not for revenge, but for protection. Use it wisely. With love, Grandma. Asterisk. I sank into her old leather chair, absorbing the magnitude of her words. The cottage was on land worth millions. The artwork I had always dismissed as cheap prints, original masterpieces. The things my family had never bothered to understand were now mine to protect and leverage. As I sat there, my phone buzzed, alerting me to multiple messages from my family. The questions, the demands, the pleas, they could all wait. Grandma's legacy was just beginning. I ignored the flood of messages from my family and dialed Mr. Patterson instead. "Is everything in order?" he asked, his tone professional. "Yes," I replied, a sense of finality settling in my chest. "Let's proceed with phase 2. Within hours, news of my true inheritance spread across the financial press like wildfire. The reactions from my family were swift and desperate. Isabella was the first to show up at the cottage, her designer heels crunching over the gravel driveway. She marched up to the front door, her expression a mix of disbelief and determination. "Madison, we need to talk. I've been going over the legal framework of the inheritance, and technically, I interrupted. You should be more concerned about the SEC investigation into your trading activities last year." She went pale, her lips trembling. "How did you?" "Grandma kept excellent records," I said coolly, just like she documented Dad's creative accounting and Oliver's insurance schemes. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You wouldn't. We're family." "Family?" I stood up, my voice breaking with all the years of hurt I had buried. "Was I family when you made me live in the basement? When you mocked every effort I made to improve myself? When you treated me like a nuisance, something stuck to the bottom of your designer shoes?" Just then, my parents and Oliver burst into the study, eyes wide with panic. "Madison," my father started, his voice shaking with that false, pleading tone he always used when he was cornered. "Let's be reasonable." "Reasonable?" I picked up one of the files from Grandma's safe, the weight of the truth in my hands. "Like the reasonable way you diverted company funds to pay for Isabella's law school while telling me college wasn't for someone like me? Or the reasonable way you funded Oliver's luxury condo while I slept on a cot in the basement?" My mother's tears started, the way they always did when she was trying to manipulate. "We only wanted what was best." "No," I cut her off, feeling the anger rise in me. "You wanted what looked best. You wanted perfect children to show off at country club lunches. You wanted success you could flaunt in front of your friends. Meanwhile, Grandma and I built something real." "Built?" Oliver scoffed, his arms crossed in disbelief. "You didn't build anything, you just inherited it." I smiled, the satisfaction of finally having the upper hand settling in. I opened my laptop, pulling up the company's financial reports. "See these profit margins? That was me. These acquisitions? Also me. While you were busy boasting about your achievements, I was running one of the largest private investment firms in the world." Their faces shifted from desperation to shock as they realized the truth. I hadn't just inherited wealth, I had helped create it. "My apartment in the basement," my father murmured slowly. "All those nights we thought you were wasting time online." "I wasn't wasting time," I said. "I was earning my business degree, managing investments, and running companies." I stood tall, feeling my grandmother's presence beside me. "Grandma saw something none of you did. Success isn't about appearances, it's about substance." Isabella's bravado cracked. "What are you going to do now? You can't just keep everything." I took a deep breath, knowing exactly how I would reshape everything. The basement apartment is being renovated into a homeless shelter, the mansion is going on the market, and the proceeds will fund scholarships for underprivileged students. Montgomery Enterprises will continue to grow, but with an emphasis on ethical investment and community development. "And us?" Oliver's voice was small now, a mere shadow of the arrogance he once held. "You get exactly what Grandma left you, books and a stethoscope. Consider yourselves lucky I'm not handing over the evidence of your financial crimes to the authorities." They left soon after, their shoulders slumped in defeat. Isabella's heels clicked against the floor, Oliver's proud posture now lost. My family, dressed in their designer clothes, suddenly seemed so small, so hollow. But this wasn't about revenge, it was about justice, not just for me, but for everyone they had ever looked down on. The months that followed brought changes they never saw coming. I moved the company headquarters to a new building, one that also housed a free medical clinic and a legal aid office. I started a foundation to provide scholarships and mentorship for students from low-income backgrounds. The basement that had once been my prison was now a thriving shelter that helped people rebuild their lives. As for my family, they adjusted, slowly. Isabella took a job at a public defender's office, doing work that actually made a difference. Oliver began volunteering at free clinics, using his skills for those who couldn't afford private healthcare. My parents, They're still learning that true worth isn't found in country club memberships or designer wardrobes. As for Grandma's cottage, I kept it just as she had left it. I now understand why she chose to live simply. Despite her vast wealth, success isn't about showing off or having the most, it's about making a real difference. Some nights, I sit in her study, looking at the painting that hid the safe, and I can almost hear her voice. They didn't see your light, sweet girl, but now the whole world does. And she was right. The basement dweller they dismissed had built something greater than their shallow success could ever be, a legacy of real change, one that would outlast all the billions in the world.